Hello friends, I'm the Pink Pastor. Welcome to my YouTube channel. And on this channel you'll find a couple of things, not the least of which is me exploring queer theology, or the theology of people who are from the LGBTQIA+ community. You'll also find the stories of my life. I've lived a lot of places, I've traveled a lot of places, I've seen a lot of things, and I'll share some of that with you too. If you're new here, welcome. If you're returning, thank you. Please consider hitting the subscribe or the notification bell or the like button, and or all of them, or making a comment on this video. I read all the comments, I try to respond to all the comments. Also, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook. Instagram at Pink Pastor. Facebook at Pink Pastor 365. And as well, you can email me, pinkpastor365@gmail.com. So I invite you, connect, please. Send me your questions. Some of my videos have already been the product of the questions of those around me, and I intend for more of them to be the same. But on to today's video. You see, because 2020 has been a horrible year, and not just for COVID, although that's been awful. But you know, the interesting thing is 2020 has also been a great year. In spite of COVID, in spite of some of the other things that have happened to me. So I want to spend just a little bit of time talking about that today. See, on February 7th, my wife went into the hospital. She went in the hospital because she was paralyzed on her left side and couldn't talk. She went in under a stroke protocol. They found out she hadn't had a stroke. She spent 5 days in an observation unit. Then she spent 30 days in an acute rehabilitation unit, learning to walk, learning to talk, learning to go to the bathroom by herself, doing many, many, many things that she couldn't have done a month earlier. And then on the 13th of March, she came home. Now, that was the same weekend that we started to talk about lockdown and social distance and all of the things related to COVID. So my life started to go wonky and off the rails in February, and by March it was just awful. And I'm trying to figure out how to navigate wheelchairs and walkers and OT and PT and all of the other things that go along with disabilities and new disabilities. But we soldiered on. And then came COVID. And then came April. And in April, we had a series of events that led to the loss of my best friend of the moment. And so goes the year. Not just COVID. Many things went wrong this year, honestly, if I'm just thinking about it. My daughter was supposed to come for a second time, my eldest daughter. She'd come when my wife was in the hospital. She helped me celebrate my birthday, which was wonderful. She was supposed to come back for my wife's birthday, my wife's 50th birthday. It'd been a pretty bad year. Seemed like a great time to have a visit from our daughter when her partner decided that, you know what? No, I'm not comfortable having you on an airplane. And so, she didn't come, and for good reason. I have 2 other daughters. I haven't seen them in at least a year. My father, my brother, haven't seen them. And then there was that part where I became no longer welcome in my mother-in-law and brother-in-law and sister-in-law's house. They all live together. Now, mind you, my wife and I have been together for over 30 years. These are people I've known for over 30 years. But I was not welcome in their house because I chose to accept my reality and transition my gender, and they have 2 children. And they were afraid of the effect on their 2 children. So the list goes on. There are more I could get into, but I won't. It's not just COVID. It's been a very bad year in many, many ways. In fact, when I got to thinking about it and writing this list, I decided that it reminded me of that series, or that book, then turned into a Netflix series, I think it was Netflix, a series of unfortunate events. There is more, and it is great. But I want to talk to you about a bit of theology first. A theological position I don't hold to or espouse, but one that is common, and one would make the transition that I'm about to talk about nearly impossible in people's heads. There's a common theology today. It's part of the health and wealth gospel, or if you prefer, the prosperity gospel movement. It's this line of thinking that says if you're just faithful enough, God will prosper all you do. God wants you to be wealthy. God wants you to have perfect health. God wants you to have and hold and need more. The problem is that there's a corollary to this bit of theology, and that says that if you're not getting wealthy and if your health isn't perfect, then you need to examine your faith. This is based on what I think is a faulty reading of the Bible. There is this part that's translated to say, God makes all things good. And I want to argue that it should be translated somewhat differently. I want to argue that it should be translated, God works all things for the good. For the good. Doesn't mean that only good things happen. It doesn't mean that it all serves God's good purpose. It means that even when things go badly, God can make some good things happen out of it. I have an entire video where, that's a lot of it, and that video would be, where is God when shit goes sideways? So I don't go into it much deeper, but just to know that if you can hold to not having that opinion, and know that God can make good things come out of the negatives in life, then I think you'll see what I'm talking about when I start to look at how these things have brought some wonderful things to come to pass. So let's look at some of my life. You see, just over a year ago, I was the pastor of a congregation. But I chose to transition my gender. And in transitioning my gender, needed to walk away from that congregation because they could not accept my transition. This has given me the opportunity to try a couple of new things. And then not the least of which is to actually get into making this YouTube channel, which has been a long-standing dream. I got to try myself in the grocery business. I found that I really like working in a grocery store, and I probably will continue to at some capacity until I retire. So I found a new and in some ways better for me profession. I lost the friendship of two people who had become my constant companions. We literally spent most of our time together. And I'll not get into the nitty-gritty of the breakup, but it led me to do some soul searching. I got to realize some of the places in which my motives were not what I had hoped they might be. I reflected on the night when it actually went south, and the meltdown that I had that my friend heard as me yelling. This led to me accepting and starting to look for ways to work with and around sensory processing disorder and autism. Things I knew I had but had never really paid attention to how they affected my life. Now I have a new understanding and some cool new tools in my toy chest, like yellow glasses, noise-canceling headphones. I also have an appreciation for why working in the grocery store for me might be a better fit in some ways than working with a congregation. This new learning has given my wife an opportunity to care for me. Yes, she is in the process of accepting her disabilities, but marriage is supposed to be give and take. And as I've accepted this, there are, in fact, some ways in which she can help me. And so, this improved our marriage. My loss of friends led to me accepting who I am. Me accepting who I am allowed my wife to take care of me some in ways she hadn't before. Her coming to take care of me in ways she hadn't before improved our marriage. So you can start to see that some really crappy things have happened. But out of the wreckage has been brought some beautiful new things. Not traveling made me aware that I was dependent upon travel to go and visit my children, so that I felt comfortable living at a distance from my children. And so we're looking to move back to the Northeast, where 2 of my children live, and the 3rd one will be moving before too long. My wife's disability has made us reassess our dreams. We had always assumed we would retire onto a boat to travel. But hopping onto and off of boats when you have physical limitations is a challenge. Doesn't make sense for us anymore. And yet, I'd never really figured out how to make that, the living on a boat, something that made sense. Hadn't figured out the logistics. I knew what I wanted to do, and figured the logistics would make themselves up along the way. But because of the disability question, because of not hopping on and off of boats, we came to a new dream of building out a school bus to be what's known as a schoolie, a tiny house on wheels, which will allow us to travel. What's interesting is I can figure out how to make this logistically happen. It starts with a $2,000 or maybe $3,000 investment in a school bus, which will be gutted. I have a whole new, much healthier 5 and 10-year plan. This does not make the bad things less bad. I still miss my friends. I still, many days, wish my wife's disability would up and disappear. I would love to be able to continue to live in the city that I've come to love instead of moving north. And yet, maybe I don't really wish those things, because the negatives had led to some wonderful new truths and things to happen. And so with that, I want to invite you to start looking at how to use the negatives of your life. How do you use the negatives of your life to bring about new and better realities, knowing they may not fit your preconceived notions from the past? Go with it. See where it takes you. It's an awesome way to live. And looking to see the good that can come from a bad situation is a great way to learn how to have hope. One final bit of hope. I mentioned earlier that I was no longer welcome in my mother-in-law and brother-in-law's house. And yet, recently I got a call from their children. They wanted to talk to Aunt Kit. And so I guess some hearts have been warmed and some time has changed the realities, and I might just be welcome in their home again. So the other thing is that sometimes when things go badly, we need to give it time. There's hope. Good things do come from the bad things that happen. And sometimes the bad things, this too shall pass. I say all of this to tell you that 2020 was a great year and a horrible year. And sometimes it's about where we choose to focus. I hope and invite you to focus on the positives that have happened in your lives, now and always. Thank you.